It's really interesting. My sister doesn't follow my teachings and all that, but she remembers her past life where she was in France and she was thrown into the river Seine and drowned. And she remembers that. And when she went to France, she went over to the bridge where she was thrown and remembered the experience. And a lot of people remember these past life experiences. They don't understand where they come from. And so the cosmic beings or the extraterrestrials have said that reincarnation needs to be reintroduced because, for one thing, most of the wars will stop if people realize that if they're going to war, they could be going to war against somebody who was their mother or father or brother and sister in the last life.
Hi everyone, welcome to Now Boarding, a travel podcast by me, Payal Nair. This show aims at creating awareness about ecotourism, sustainable tourism, responsible travel, and a lot more. We will cover stories and journeys of people who are ecotourism specialists and those who are leaders in their field. We will also be talking to people who have had unique travel experiences, remarkable conceptual places to stay, unexplored cultures, and ancient histories of various towns and cities around the world. Join me in this journey of knowing more about travel. Get inspired to see the world and discover your inner self. Hi everyone. In this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Wajid Hassan. Wajid's journey has taken him from Pakistan to England and finally to America, and he's talking to me from Detroit. His journey is actually weaving a tapestry of experiences that span across I would say, phenomenal fields. He's got a technical background as a field service engineer. He has carved out a successful career in the entertainment industry. He has also got decades of deep knowledge and practice in metaphysics, healing, spirituality, and New Age concepts. He's very passionate about sharing this wisdom with others. And not just that, he's also the author of a best-selling book. It's called The Struggle for World Sanity. And he's inspired countless readers. And today he's here to share his insights and experiences with us. So thank you so much for joining me today, Wajid.
Oh, it's a real pleasure to be on your show, Payal. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. So let's kickstart this conversation. As I mentioned in the introduction, you started your journey from Pakistan and then you went to England and then eventually ended up in America. So just very briefly on how that happened before we actually dive deeply into your life after that.
Briefly, do you have 4 hours? When I was 3 years old, my parents decided to move to England. At that time, Pakistan was part of the Commonwealth, and they needed people to do menial help there in England. So my father was a school teacher, and he had 3 jobs, and he still couldn't afford. There was 4 of us, 4 siblings, and so we embarked on a journey through different countries: Iran, Afghanistan, Turkey. By bus and train, wasn't by airplane. We couldn't afford that.
Right.
But we understand now what migrants or refugees have to go through these days. I was too young to remember, but eventually we got to France, crossed over the border, the English Channel, and got to Dover, and then ended up in the north of England near Manchester. Stayed there till I was 10. Then we moved to London, went to high school there, got my formal education there. Eventually got into the technical field, into computer repair. Then finally, I actually met my yogi master, Dr. George King, at that time in England. And later on, I decided to move to Los Angeles. That's where the headquarters of the organization that I followed, the Ethereal Society, was located. So I ended up in Los Angeles. I did my technical for a while and then eventually got burnt out and decided to. Actually, it was after my master passed away. I got into a kind of a deep depression. And my wife at the time said, "Why don't you get into comedy and acting? You used to like doing that in high school." And so that's what I did. I had a little computer store in Hollywood and was doing the open mics. And then casting director found me and got me an agent, and I started doing that. But in the background, I kept my healing and my metaphysical and my new age outlook more to myself. And it's only since I've semi-retired that I wrote the book. Once I wrote the book, I decided to expand myself, my areas into that speciality, which I've kept to myself. So that's where I am today.
Okay. So, how do you think the discovery of spiritual life would actually impact human society, culture, and religion? I'm not sure
Well,
throwing you off with this question or.
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Hundreds of years ago, when scientists said that the Earth actually revolved around the sun, they were called heretics. And when people were told that the Earth wasn't flat, it was actually round, people didn't believe them. To me, the evidence for UFOs or extraterrestrial life is overwhelming. The governments of the world have known it for decades. They just don't want to tell the people. We are being watched by extraterrestrials. My yogi master was actually pathically in contact with these beings. And it's really interesting to know that when they contacted him, he was a yogi master in his own right when he was telepath in the 1950s. It was really interesting when he was contacted that we started our third introduction into atomic weapons. Twice in the past, we have destroyed ourselves, civilizations with atomic wars. And we started this mad race again in the 50s, where Russia exploded over 1,000 nuclear weapons, as did America. And even scientists today are even baffled that we're still alive. And I believe the extraterrestrial forces, who are not only millions of years scientifically advanced, but these are the angels that they talk about in the Bible and in other holy books. I believe they absorbed a lot of that radiation, not only saved the planet, but also saved us. And so they're coming from a very benign, caring, like they're our spiritual parents, looking upon a very ignorant and savage race who are just at each other's throats day after day. And the message that they are throwing out at this time is for love and peace, cooperation between countries, stop this racial prejudice, stop this religious bigotry, and let's get together and come together as one race. They look at us as one race, which is the human race, and that's the philosophy that I propound on a daily basis.
How does it actually connect to our understanding of the universe and human consciousness?
The thing is, and I know a lot of people, a lot of your listeners know that we don't just dwell on the physical level. That's just the basic level. Not only my master, but many yogi masters in India, Tibet, Himalayas, they have the ability to project consciously, go into positive trance state and project from their body and go to different realms. And my yogi master, Dr. George King, also had that ability. And he said that there's 6 levels above us and 4 levels below us. They're dovetailed with the physical realm. So we don't just live on the physical realm. Most people don't even know what happens when we die. They just assume that there's this one life, and at the end you're buried and it's the end. But another thing that cosmic, I would, instead of calling them extraterrestrials, we refer to them as cosmic masters, because they are extremely wise in their outlook. And one thing that they're propounding at this particular time, which a lot of the Orthodox religions have kept away from their followers, is the truth of reincarnation. Reincarnation to me is a fact. It's a fact because it answers the so-called unbalance between people on the planet. And if we believe in a higher, loving, divine entity, then it would be incorrect to say that people just have one life. Then why is somebody born rich and poor, and why somebody has higher intelligence, lower intelligence? And this is because we bring from our past lives the experiences that we bring on. And so what happens is we stay on this way. The cosmic beings have said we did not come on this planet to suffer. The suffering has been caused primarily by ourselves and not by a divine source. This is a beautiful classroom. It's a beautiful spacecraft that's revolving around the sun. The solar system's revolving around the galaxy. And we're part of this cosmic event. And our heritage is to learn lessons, get away from the ignorance and the suffering and raise ourselves, our consciousness to higher levels. That's what our heritage is. Not all this madness that we see in political, military, corporate environments. These are just designed by mankind to keep us down. And again, the message again is of love, cooperation, understanding, healing. And it's a subject that now people are, I believe, Hail, that there is a spiritual awakening. I believe that people, because the planet herself is raising her vibrations, and there is a change of consciousness. People are getting tired of the 9 to 5, of the political rhetoric, of the military madness, and they're coming up and saying this has to stop. And eventually it will, because the future has been set and it's going to be a beautiful future. It's up to us to decide whether we want to be a part of it or continue our eternal suffering, which we've been doing for the last 18 million years.
Do you think science and metaphysics can, or do you think that they can coexist or even complement each other in understanding the mysteries of life?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that question up, because quantum physics is now, based on the calculations, is now understanding parallel universes. That matter doesn't just exist on a physical level, it exists on different levels. Scientists, what the yogi says, scientists get say hundreds of years later. The science of yoga, when you go within yourself, you tap into the all knowledge source, which is within us, which is part of the divine, is part of the creator that we're all connected to. So the yogi gets that realization where the scientist finds out later on. And what the metaphysician or the yogi says today, the scientist finds out tomorrow. Even now, science is beginning to understand that this particular planet that we live on is a living, breathing goddess. It's not just a piece of rock, that she breathes and that she feels pain. And a movement has started, ecologically wise, to stop this madness of raping this planet of all our resources. And we only have one planet to live. And even now, scientists, they know that there's pictures of the seasons where they see the Mother Earth breathing in and out just by the photographs over a certain period of time. This is something that the indigenous tribes around the world have known for centuries. And mankind, Western man or modern man, in his greed and lust for power, has just taken from this beautiful planet and not given back. So it's time that realization also dawns for everybody on this planet.
Yeah, I think it's important. And you're right that there is an awakening, but I hope it's not too late. And I hope things can be not reversed, but at least there's a lot of there are a lot of movements, there's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of action also towards righting whatever has been missed for all these years. So no, I think it is a positive sign, and it's important that it keeps heading in that direction. So how do you think cultural and religious beliefs around the world actually influence perceptions of, I'm coming back to reincarnation again, because I'm really fascinated with that.
Truth hurts sometimes, and when the truth is revealed, people don't like the message, especially with Orthodox religions. I was raised as a Muslim up to the age of 16, and then I also went to Christian Church of England school. So during the day, I was reading the Bible and singing hymns and carols, which I really enjoyed, by the way. I really enjoyed being part of Christianity as much as I enjoyed going to the mosque, and reading the Quran and doing the Arabic prayers. But to me, once I found something that expanded my horizons, I decided to follow that. Speaking of reincarnation, this is interesting. These are Christian scholars. I read this recently. Christian scholars have researched and found out that in AD 450, at the meeting of the elders in Constantinople, did you know before that reincarnation was actually taught in the Christian church? And they actually took it out and put this one life to live in order to control the masses and tell them either you do what we tell you or you go to hell, or either you do what we tell you and you go to heaven. And the Orthodox religions have hid this truth of reincarnation. It's really interesting. My sister doesn't follow my teachings and all that, but she remembers her past life where she was in France and she was thrown into the river Seine and drowned. And she remembers that. And when she went to France, she went over to the bridge where she was thrown and remembered the experience. And a lot of people remember these past life experiences. They don't understand where they come from. And so the cosmic beings or the extraterrestrials have said that reincarnation needs to be reintroduced because, for one thing, most of the wars will stop if people realize that if they're going to war, they could be going to war against somebody who was their mother or father or brother and sister in the last life. And all this racial bigotry and religious bigotry will just be thrown out of the door because we're all black and white and yellow, and we're all Muslims and Hindus and Christians and Jews, and we're all different cultures. Because how are we going to learn these experiences unless we go through that? We come back sometimes as a man, we come back as a woman to learn certain experiences. And all these experiences of going to the other realms, coming back, are designed in order for us to gain enlightenment and liberate us from our ignorance and our darkness. And so that's a topic which and they said, which I thought was really interesting, that those in the Vatican and other places who are hiding the truth of reincarnation will eventually themselves be replaced by new age thinkers who will come and speak the truth, and the truth eventually rises above the form of lies and deceit and ignorance. And I believe good always prevails. Unfortunately, we see that dictators and oppressors come and go, but they all go down eventually. And that's the law of karma. Nobody can get away with anything. Eventually, it all comes down. Yeah. Hitler and Caesar and Mussolini and Stalin, they did their dirty deeds, but eventually they all went down.
So I was going to ask you about karma as well, and how do you see the concept of karma actually influencing global events? And we're all at that point in our lives waiting for world peace. So how do you think the concept of karma actually can influence?
We can't, honestly, Pale, we can't really wait for world peace. Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to be in the world. In other words, it starts with me, you, and your listeners, and everybody else on the planet. Karma and reincarnation should be the first thing that should be taught in the schools instead of hygiene and math and science, which really amounts to nothing. I didn't learn nothing from school. I learned more from life than I did from school. Yeah. Even the formal education system is archaic and needs to be changed. But people need to understand that we're responsible, each one of us, for the conditions on this planet. We're responsible for our own actions. Children need to know that there's consequences for their actions, good or bad. One of the cosmic beings in Dr. King, when he channeled these beings, he actually recorded these as tape recordings because the mental impulses were translated into English. And the 600 recordings that people can either listen to or read for themselves. This is not a recruitment campaign, but we don't recruit, but we do say keep an open mind. And people, if they have an open mind, will be more open to the truth. One of the teachers that came through Dr. King, the Master Theorist, he said, if you murder somebody in this life, he said, you may get away with it in this life by having an attorney or a lawyer or on the cover of a military, but eventually you too will be murdered in a similar way, either in this life or the other. Not to punish you, but karma doesn't punish, it teaches you, to teach you that you don't do these things. If you're rich and you ignore the poor, you may come back as a poor person next time. Again, not to punish you, but to teach you that you can't be greedy and selfish in these days when thousands and thousands of our fellow humans are suffering. So this basic law does not discriminate. It's completely and absolutely just. And so you and me and everybody are in the position that we are based on our previous karma. And then if we want to improve ourselves in our future lives, then we do things that are positive, things like service, helping the planet, all the things that the teachers of the religions have taught us over the centuries, which most people don't even know. What part of thou shalt not kill does mankind not understand? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is so true, because you can't really see that reality today is so different.
Yeah, they're killing in the name of that my God is better than your God.
Yeah.
So we can kill women and children with impunity. Talk about being on a savage, barbaric, being a part of a savage, barbaric race. Unfortunately, that's the kind of race we belong to. But at the same time, there's hope. Like you said, there is hope, there is understanding, there is an awakening. And people are not satisfied with the status quo. They're saying enough is enough.
Yeah.
We have to change.
Now I have to talk to you about your book. So, what actually inspired you to write The Struggle for World Sanity? And what kind of a message are you hoping for the readers to take away from the book?
Actually, it wasn't an inspiration. I got an email once in the mail that said for $16,000 we can write your book for you. And I thought to myself, $16,000? I think I can write my book myself. So I just got inspired to write the book. And basically, it's not anything spectacular. It's just a memoir of my life, my meeting with my yogi master, my experiences with him, and then the teachings that he propounded in order to help save the planet. And so that's it pretty much in a nutshell. Some of my own metaphysical, spiritual experiences. And then it's a message of hope, because even the title, The Struggle for World Sanity, it is a struggle. And we have to roll up our sleeves. And the only solution is, which has not been followed, all the other things have been followed. Politics has not worked. In fact, for me, I follow three politicians only, and that's Jesus, Buddha, and Krishna, because their political message is universal love. And if politics change from bickering and backbiting and hatred to universal spiritual love for everyone, not just for one party or the other party, but for everyone. That's the kind of politics that we need. And so the politicians I follow, the great masters that have been over the centuries, have proved themselves that if we follow these spiritual laws, which we swayed from, not these religious laws, because later on these were warped by religious dogma, but spiritual laws, basic laws of caring for your neighbor. And the thing that they're propounding today is sending out the spiritual energy. You talked about metaphysics, electricity. We can't see electricity, but we know that it works based on its results. And the same with spiritual energy. We're not physical beings, we're spiritual beings in a physical body. And we have a subtle aura, we have psychic senses, we have a soul, and we need to feed that soul. And one way to feed that soul is to channel spiritual energy from the cosmos. It's a real energy. If your listeners just go in front of a mirror and they raise their hands and project like a white light in the mirror, it will reflect back into the aura, and you will feel a tingling around the aura. So it's actual physical, just like wind. We can't see wind, but we can feel it. And so spiritual energy, this physical energy, it's what's desperately needed. Dr. King said in the 70s, when they had this oil crisis, he said, there's only one energy crisis on this planet, and that's a spiritual energy crisis. That if you solve the spiritual energy crisis, he said, not only will you resolve all crises in your personal life, but it will resolve all crises between countries and the whole world. And that's the call of action today. We can't sit around waiting for peace on this planet. And so people say, oh, I can't do nothing. All you have to do is spend 5-10 minutes a day, not even that, raising your hand, sending out, doing your own little prayers in your own particular way, or joining us. We do online services. But to send this, and the next revolution is going to be a mental, peaceful revolution where we transmute this. I stay away from social media because there's so much hatred and apathy and backbiting that's going on right now in the mind belt. You talk about pollution, physical pollution. There's a mental pollution that's occurring around the planet. And so it starts with us by sending out this positive, vibrant, healing, spiritual energy that will cancel this madness. And it all starts with the mind. And once we, en masse, we can transmute this hatred, then eventually peace will prevail on planet Earth.
You were just mentioning online services that you provide. Could you just elaborate on that?
We get together on a daily basis, and from around the world, we all get together and cooperate, and we send out spiritual power. So if people want to join us, go to a website called 12 Blessings, the 12 being numerical. So 12 blessings and they can get information on that. The 12 blessings is a spiritual teaching which my yogi master was overshadowed by. No greater person than the master, Jesus himself, and transmitted these new teachings as an extension to the Sermon on the Mount 2,000 years ago. So people, if they were interested in that, can go and listen to these teachings or join in. And the main message is to send out the power. And if they don't want to do that, then they do that in their own particular way, in their own. Dr. King was on the BBC in 1959, and he channeled one of the cosmic beings, a master by the name of Master Sirius. And the commentator asked him, he said, "What's your message to the people of Earth?" And he didn't say follow Dr. King or follow the teachings of the Ethereal Society. He said, if you want to be a Hindu, be the best Hindu. If you want to be a Christian, be the best Christian. If you want to be a Buddhist, be the best Buddhist. In other words, follow the correct teachings, the spiritual teachings of the religion. And if you don't follow any particular religion, that's okay. The call for action today is a yoga of service called karma yoga. So service is the key. Service is what I believe will be the religion of the future. Service to others, regardless of race, color, creed, or religion. I believe that's the call of action. And people don't like that. I don't like the fact that I'm my brother's keeper. But if you believe in reincarnation, then the terrorists or the communists or the fascists, Dr. King made himself very unpopular in the 50s when he said that we're just as close to the Chinese as we are to the Russians, as we are to our own family. And people don't like that concept. I don't like that concept, especially when I hear about the horrors that these people do to each other. But we are connected. We're all metaphysically connected. We're all part of the human race. And so what affects one affects the other. And so if you're going to do mass murder, it's going to affect the whole planet and the whole of mankind. But if a group of people get together and start sending out healing and love and light, it will affect the whole.
Thank you so much, Wajid. I've really enjoyed listening to you. And I just a few last words for the listeners, anything that you want to share that you feel like will inspire them or motivate them?
If they want to learn more about my book and myself, they can go to my website, wajidauthor.com, wajidauthor.com. I want to leave a message of hope that no matter, right now, I believe there's forces of darkness and forces of evil are fighting against forces of light, which I believe are the higher beings, the angels. I believe these are happening behind the scenes. I believe there's a concerted effort to create World War III. There's a concerted effort to destroy mankind as it's done before, because it will give power to these darker forces that are in these lower realms that want to keep control of mankind. We have to be part of the spiritual battle. We don't take up swords or guns, but we do have weapons of peace, which is in the psychic center can project energy, and the psychic centers in the palms of the hand can project energy. So we can be part of this spiritual battle that's occurring right now and keep sending this out. It's a win situation, because the more we send out, again, coming back to the law of karma, the more we send out, the more we receive. So we send out healing energy to our friends, family, the world, we will receive that. And eventually we will receive enough energy that we ourselves can become more enlightened beings. So that's the call of action. And there's a beautiful future ahead. Don't worry about all the messy news that's been projected to you to hypnotize you into fear and depression and anxiety. But raise above that. I suffer from depression, anxiety, and fear. Who doesn't? And so I have to force myself to join with others and send this power out. And not only to help myself, not only to help my family, not only to help my community, my country, but for the whole world.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Wajid. I am sure like the message here is very clear that there is hope. And I think that's the most important thing. And thank you for sharing all your thoughts with us. And I'm sure people will want to read your book, as do I. Good luck. And I was very happy talking to you. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Now Boarding, a travel podcast. Check out other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. And of course, don't forget to share your thoughts with us. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes only on Now Boarding, a travel podcast.